Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new chapter of the Future of Talent supported by Endeavor, a space of conversations with different entrepreneurs, CEOs, experts on the future of talent, where you can learn about the trends and innovation related to the organization culture. So I invite you to follow us in Instagram and YouTube accounts to know about and to listen to these different interviews we're having in the last couple of months. My name is Irene Schlechter, and I am delighted to have created this space together with Endeavor and have these kind of conversations that are changing the way we understand work, job, culture, and organizations around the world. Today, we have an amazing guest. We have the general manager of MSD Chile. MSD is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. His name is Conrod, and he's also the author of the book Staged, which outlines a four-step process to excel in personal and professional life, and also Restage, a mindset for personal and professional growth. So I invite you also to check those books, and we'll discuss about it with Conrad in a few minutes. Conrad has been a member of the board of directors of different organizations such as Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Independence Region, Women of Color in Pharma, the STEM committee of the National Academy Foundation, and part of the steering committee of the network at the Diatribe Foundation. Welcome, Conrad.
Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Me too. I'm so glad that we have you here. So thanks so much. We know we have a lot of things to do. So this is a very special moment for us. Thank you for being with us.
Absolutely.
How has been the experience so far in Chile, Conrad?
Chile has been amazing. I feel like I'm now a Chileno. I have lots of red, white, and blue around the house, lots of Chilean shirts. I look forward to Fiestas Patrias. I enjoy all the food, the culture, and honestly, I'm surprised by how open people have been with me, inviting me into their homes, introducing me to their family, which was a lot different than what people told me the
Hmm.
experience would be. So maybe that's why it's been so refreshing to see how much people have invited me into their culture. But also, I came with this thirst for knowledge of wanting to understand Chile, wanting to understand the history, but also understand the present and the future. And so, what I've learned is that the culture here is very rich. It's also very complex because we're at this time where there's the intersection of the past and the future. And so, it's really an exciting time for me to be in Chile as a general manager because what I see is a country that's really trying to create a new identity. And it's so exciting to be a part of that journey, especially as it relates to healthcare, which is where I work, but also the topics around the environment and energy and technology and startups. So I'm really excited to be in Chile, especially during at this very moment.
Fantastic. It is indeed a very special moment for us. So we're glad to have you here. And also, you've written Staged and Restaged. So tell us a little bit more about your experience on writing these books, about the mindset and all the things that you're covering on those books.
Sure. So, nothing makes your spouse happier than waking up one morning and saying, I'm going to write a book. Because immediately, she knew that that meant a lot of time doing research, a lot of time writing and thinking. But I tried my best to do my writing either when, she was sleeping or just journal here and there when I could. But, for me to go on that journey of writing a book, it was really a journey of self-discovery. It was more about me learning about myself than it was to teach others. And so I didn't really have a commercial mindset of I'm going to read a book and I want to make it a bestseller. It was more of a I want to do this as a personal discovery. And the reason I did it was because I knew my ultimate goal. I knew what I wanted to accomplish, but I also was, willing to accept the fact that my ability to do so would come down to preparation, but also opportunity, or what most people call luck. And so in that equation, the only thing that I could really control is preparation. So I knew I needed to focus on discovering those ingredients of who is Conrod Kelly. And so I needed to make Conrod Kelly this product and do the product development and do the packaging and then the marketing strategy for me. And so
Wow.
it's something that I'd always done for companies, but I realized I had not done that for myself. And so, in the process of writing the book, I started to understand the importance of purpose. and being purposeful in everything we do. But now you look about leadership, it's all about purpose. And
Yeah.
organizations, it's about purpose. I started to understand the benefit of committing to a process and the significance of doing things in the right sequence. I learned about preparation, and that it's not just you sit down and write a book, you prepare to write a book, and how do you actually do so, and practice. And so I was so intentional about practice that started with 5 minutes, then 10 minutes of practice, then 30 minutes of practice, up until the point where I could write for hours at a time. And as you're going through this process, just like life, there's ups and downs. But what I learned through this was just the importance of being persistent. And so what you see in the first book of Stage, it was my philosophy, it was an idea. I took 5 years that I lived my life by this philosophy that had not been tested. And then through the process of feedback and reflection and working with counselors and executive coaches and putting things out there and trying, then I was able to come up with Restaged, where I was able to almost go through like a mini PhD course on myself, that I then realized that, I had been able to land on these four concepts of the importance of, discovering those insights, investing and improving yourself, being authentic in a way that you generate interest, and then finally telling your story in a way that inspires others. And so that was that journey, and it's an ongoing journey, and it's been just a wonderful experience to get the feedback for those that have read the book and they say they highlight and they write in the margins and then they give it to someone else. And ultimately, that's the biggest compliment more than anything else.
Absolutely. So let's talk about purpose, and let's talk about your vision also of what has happened in the way we work. Or how do we understand a job, right? So probably after the pandemic, it changed dramatically the way we approach to our jobs and the meaning of working somewhere. So what's your perception of how has been impacted in these regards?
Sure. So I'm a big believer in never waste a crisis. And I think COVID-19 was a crisis unlike something that anyone could have even imagined. And so for me, this crisis was an opportunity for us to build culture differently. And what I mean by that is, typically you kind of have these two paths, right? The one of, do people know what the culture is? And then do they actually feel connected to it? And what you realize is that, the pandemic helped you realize that people were actually showing up to work in this culture, but they never actually felt connected to it. And
Yeah.
so that was a bit of an insight that hit me during this pandemic that really changed the way that I thought about it. And so even in my own personal example, I took over this role as leading MSD Chile, and Chile was on lockdown. So here I was, the general manager of a country, and for the first 6 months, I couldn't even enter the country. So my people were not going to get to meet me. I was not going to get to meet them. There wasn't going to be the opportunity for physical connection. But the opportunity that arose was emotional connection.
Hmm.
And so that I wanted to have that emotional proximity, that emotional connection with people. And my team helped me in terms of setting up virtual coffees, virtual lunch, virtual happy hours, spending time deliberately and one-on-one and getting to know people to the point that I met with everyone in the organization, even the people that working our facilities that helps with cleaning the building and making sure it's safe for us. And
Hmm.
so what I saw was that, number one, I had to do it because I had no option, but it was a gift that allowed me to understand the difference between physical connection, just proximity, which doesn't always equate to emotional connection. And the emotional connection is what connects and deepens that relationship that people have with companies. And so, it led me to realize it's more than just open workspaces and glasses and cool pictures on the wall and snacks. That doesn't create a culture of connection, and people can see through it. And so for us, what we were able to do was put the culture in the actual work that we were doing. And what I mean by that is the culture was in our mission of saving and improving lives. This culture was in the vision to protect, improve, and extend the lives for all. It was in our strategy. It was in how we were structured, which then was contributed to how we actually wanted to work together. So instead of people saying, I see the words on the page, it was in everything they were doing, everything they were living, breathing, eating, experiencing the culture. And that allowed us to transition from people just doing tasks to people being able to do what I call deep work, right?
Mhm.
Meaningful work that connects to the goals of the organization. And so the last thing I'll say is what I started to witness was that instead of people saying, well, let's meet in the office and go to our respective desks and offices and close the door, let's go meet with a customer.
Right.
Let's get outside of the office. Let's go together and let's have that experience. And now let's build that emotional connection to our
Mhm.
customers in addition to the physical. So for me, I think that's been one of the greatest benefits that we've seen within the pandemic.
Yeah, and also uh, there are key elements to build a culture, as you're saying, the emotional connection that you have. So from your vision, what are the key elements to create or to build an attractive organizational culture?
Sure. So to me, I think the key elements to build that culture is gets back to meaning and purpose. There has to be clarity. The other part, just to finish answering your question around the organizational culture. So we talked about meaning and purpose. We talked about flexibility. We talked about the next one, which is important, is making sure that you're keeping pace or establishing the pace of technological transformation. In this day and time, people don't want to work in an organization that they feel is behind the times. And so, because in our personal lives, the change and the rate of change in technology is so fast, you don't want to step into your company and feel like you're going backwards.
Mm.
So those are, three things that I really look at in terms of the transformation. But there's one other thing that I really want to, I guess, dig into, which is as you're building the culture. So why are you building the culture in the first place? You want to be able to recruit talent, you want to be able to develop talent, and you want to be able to retain talent. But there's two things that I think are missing in that equation. One is how do you accelerate talent? And the other one is, are you willing to make the decision to dismiss certain individuals from an organization that doesn't support your overall organizational culture? So if
Mhm.
I can just dig into those a little bit, when I think about this talent culture, there's a few things that needs to happen. The first is that I'm seeing this shift and the need to have a shift where we're looking at opportunities based on potential. And this is what I mean by accelerating. It's no longer about checking the box. So if you want to have an attractive culture, people need to know that they can have a personalized career path and that there's support for that. The other one that I think is really important is this idea of having leaders as learners and teachers.
Mhm.
So it's how does, as a leader, do I show up demonstrating that I'm willing to learn from those people in my organization, but then also that I'm willing to teach those individuals in my organization and develop them and not just do the tasks that I'm assigning to them. The other one is I think about is leading teams. So it's no longer just about I'm leading this particular individual. Yes, you have to learn how to get the most out of that individual, but you also have to learn how to get the most out of a high performing team. And
Mhm.
so the last two things, and sorry, I'm very passionate about talent and
Me
culture,
too.
is the emphasis on impact. And I think
Yeah.
it's so important for us to have clear expectations on the definition of success. So it's not have you been in the role 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's have you been able to demonstrate the impact that you've had, as
Mhm.
well as a desire to learn other things. And now we can support you. And the last thing is just the transparency.
Mhm.
So I think in this day and age, people want to understand their direction, not necessarily their destination. And
Mhm.
when people are leaving companies, what they often say is, I didn't know my path. I didn't know the journey. I didn't know I was valued. And so I was looking for that in other places. And so hopefully for those listening in, that's a very important piece to make sure that we're being transparent with people because that's a regrettable loss that could have been
Yeah.
easily solved just by being open with people and where they stand.
Absolutely. And there is another thing, well, another key element, which I believe it's inclusion and diversity as part of the culture of an organization, right? Because in Chile, we've been talking about it, and also in pharma 10 years ago, about when we talked about inclusion diversity was mainly on female representation or female leadership. Today, inclusion diversity is broader than that. Of course, it's about that, but also another diversity dimensions.
Yeah.
And how do we make this diversity work actually at at the work in a team, right? What's your vision about that?
Sure. And so I'll connect diversity with digital innovation, which I think has been really interesting because one of the most immediate benefits I saw, especially during the pandemic, was the impact that digital innovation can have on DEI. So I can give you just a few examples that I personally benefit from. So, one, you saw an appreciation and acknowledgement from organizations around the importance of mental health. I've seen that do tremendous amount of benefit to organizations by acknowledging that people were struggling with mental health, not just because of the pandemic and the lockdown, that was there before. And so I think that's an important component of DEI, and the fact that you've got virtual tools that can allow you to connect with counselors or to check in, or apps like Calm that can help you with guided meditation. I've also seen translation tools. I took a job leading MSD Chile, not being completely fluent in Spanish or Chilenismos, but I've been able to get up to speed a lot quicker because I had the benefit of these translation tools. But then I start thinking about people that are differently able, and how going from an audio only conference to when there's closed captioning or video conferencing. And then lastly, if I think about inclusion, the fact that you now have tools that can allow you to chat, where you can use surveys, you have virtual whiteboards. Now you're able to change this dynamic where people were able to kind of opt out or sit back or felt like they couldn't lean in or speak up. Now you're having tools to be able to capture more of the insights. And that's inclusion, because diversity alone, to your point, will not be enough. Only if people actually feel like they can be included can you actually make a difference.
Absolutely. Uh, and talking about digital innovation, um, tell me what you think about how can we connect the digital innovation and to collaborate with organizations. It seems like organizations sometimes they struggle to
Yeah.
to try different things. What's your vision?
Sure. So I think a part of that is actually finding organizations where innovation is a part of their culture.
Mm,
And the true test for me of whether or not an organization really embraces innovation is whether they're more focused on the solution or they're more focused on the problem.
mm,
The true sign of an innovative company is a company that shows up with a deep understanding of the problem. And so at MSD Chile, we always talk about the importance of falling in love with the problem. Am I solving the right problem? And I'll give you a quick analogy that someone shared with me once that has always sat with me. So they tell the story of elevators, and when elevators were first being introduced into buildings, and that people were complaining about how slow the elevator was. So these elevator manufacturing companies were coming together, and they were have a bunch of people in the room trying to figure out, how do we make it faster? Is it a bigger motor? Do we need to change the cabling? Do we need to do these other things? And someone asked, well, how do people know that it's moving slow?
mm.
I said, So then they invited different people into the room to understand people's perception of time. And so if you notice now in the elevators, you'll notice mirrors, you'll notice music, you'll notice pictures. And the real problem was giving people something to do to occupy their time while they were in the elevator.
Mm.
And so that's a part of when I think of these digital companies and a lot of these innovative companies, they show up with a solution looking for a problem. And
Mm.
I think we can make so much more progress if you show up with an understanding of the problem or asking the right questions to uncover the problem, that allows you to better position the solution that you have for the organization or for our customers.
Right. So it's having a, let's say, a customized solution, maybe built together with the organization, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks so much, Condor, for your time and for being with us today. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I love your sessions. So keep them going.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks everyone who listened to us today, this interview. And remember to follow us on YouTube and also on Instagram, The Future of Talent Supported by Endeavor. Thanks so much. And I hope you see you again soon. Thank you, Conrad.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao.